hello, hello, and welcome to Laugh It Like It's Hot, everyone. I'm solo today. It's actually kind of weird to be by myself. Just thinking, I'm like, ooh, I normally have Milena with me, just kind of sitting next to me. And now I'm like, wait, how do I do an intro without her? Well, it's totally fine. You're just going to get Monica today. And I appreciate you guys listening to this episode. This one's going to be about news. So we're going to do a little pit stop before we publish our episode around our Toronto, Laguna Seca, and Portland recaps around what happened in the races. I wanted to take today to talk a little bit about the news. The news cycle in IndyCar has been fairly quiet, and I first wanted to talk about the elephant in the room. To connect to our post that we had on social media, I wanted to first say that this is a podcast that is built around inclusivity. We want to have a community where people feel seen, heard, and valued and respected. And we will continue to do that and talk about the thing that we love, which is racing and IndyCar. IndyCar, the reason why we love it is because there are hundreds and thousands of different fans around the world that love and support similar drivers and teams like we do. And there are thousands of unique individuals that make the sport happen every day. And we will continue to value inclusivity and we will value the conversation around it. And we will continue to support our community no matter what. So let's get started. The first piece of news I want to talk about is around the conversation around Cusick Motorsports. So for those of you who remember, in the Indy 500 this year, Cusick and Dreyer Reinbold Racing had two entries with Jack Harvey and Ryan Hunter-Reay. Don Cusick has been very vocal about talking about the future of Cusick Motorsport and IndyCar. And while they are still looking at having an entry at the Indy 500, there's been a lot of conversation around Cusick Motorsports having either their own entry in Indy Next or having a co-owned entry in the NXT program. So it will be very interesting to see if they will actually, for next year, be on the grid for the Indy NXT series. I think, Don had a lot of different articles and had done some podcasts, and he was very much talking about how he would love to be in IndyCar in some capacity again. And it brings the question of, are we starting to enter the era where teams that are unable to receive a charter, similar to Prema, will still maybe run maybe part-time seasons with a car or even just a few races just to gain momentum, sponsorship, and have the funding to potentially race a full season. It also begs the question of if Cusick Motorsports does have an Indy Next program with at least two cars starting in 2026, it definitely builds the foundation around building the team out. You'll be able to have more engineers and more strategists and more individuals working on the NXT cars, which then gives you the opportunity to not only have the entry for the full-time ride or the possibility, if there is a bump day, to have an Indy 500 run. And what's awesome about this is that Cusick can also have the opportunity of still running the Indy 500 with either one or two entries, depending if they go in by themselves or if they partner with Dreyer Reinbold again or with another team. And then they'll have their NXT season, which, if you think about it, that can be their junior feeder series to be able to potentially have drivers ready to step up into IndyCar. So I think it will be very interesting to see what Cusick Motorsports does. And I wonder if it'll give the opportunity for even teams like Dreyer Reinbold Racing to think about, what does it mean if I don't run a full-time car for the full-time series in IndyCar? with the new chassis and the new cars that are coming up, hopefully in 2028, the major conversation around new cars is about size and understanding that the cars are going to be larger. So, if we think about that, with cars being larger, that means that pit lanes are going to have to get smaller with pit box assignments. So if we will be having continually 27 or even 28 cars on the grid, and let's say with the new regulations, only 24 cars can fit at certain racetracks, for example, will we run to the possibility of maybe having qualifying really be important for those remaining 4, 5, 6 cars to see if they'll even qualify for those races that they are part of, right? Or if you run a part time team, do you even go to those races that can't support more than 24 cars, for example, and you go to racetracks that have giant pit lanes where then all cars can join? Or does IndyCar cap it? So I think this will be a very interesting development to keep an eye on, and we'll definitely see what happens. But it also is going to give us more opportunity to take a look at, is there a possibility for us to have more non charter teams on the full time or part time or race by race basis? And we'll see. And Prema is a very good example of what a non charter team can do. The other side of the coin is, are there any other teams that are currently holding two charters that are willing to sell a charter to Don Cusick, right? Or to Dreyer Reinbold Racing? There is the opportunity to do that. Teams can sell a charter to another team, right? So if Prema really wanted to get involved in the charter system and have access to leadership circle money and all that jazz, they can talk to a Juncos Hollinger Racing or a Coin, for example, and say, "Hey, Dale, we would buy a charter from you. What's what? What's the cost? What's the dollar amount?" Right? So this does give us a little bit of conversations around, hey, in 27, potentially 28, are we going to start seeing a jumbled up more conversations around how many cars can actually qualify, how many can have in the race, and do we have too many cars to be able to do that? Which makes qualifying a little bit more fun, in my opinion, and gives us the opportunity to say, hey, we'll have a bump day 5 races out of the year, which might draw more people to actually watch qualifying on Saturdays or Fridays, whenever the race is happening. So I guess we're going to see. Another thing I wanted to talk about is viewership. So viewership numbers for Toronto and Laguna Seca came out, and I find it really interesting that approximately almost the same amount of people watched both races, which is crazy to me because they were on completely different time zones in completely different parts of North America. So when you're thinking about the viewership, Toronto and Laguna Seca roughly received around 730-ish thousand viewers for the weekend. For Toronto, that was great. That is up from last year's numbers of around 500,000. And for Laguna Seca, it was actually a really big achievement to have that many people. I don't know if many of us remember, but Laguna Seca last year, the viewership was not great. It was definitely something that we were like, oop, is Laguna Seca possibly out? Well, this was the largest Laguna Seca audience ever, which that's amazing. Laguna Seca is definitely a track that is on mine and Melena's wish list to go. So being able to see that 730,000 people watch the race for both Toronto and for Laguna Seca is really actually exciting. And in my opinion, it's starting to show the Fox broadcast relationship that we have over NBC and Peacock. While the numbers are great, and it's a positive momentum, I still think that we have so much more room for improvement. In a perfect world, I would love to be able to see the consistent numbers like we had at St. Pete. and see on average 1.5 million people watching IndyCar. I think we will get there, but there's still a lot of questions around, is it going to be a possibility, right? I think what Fox has done has definitely helped. It definitely has made it more enjoyable, more fun. They brought over Will Buxton, for God's sakes, and Will has been doing a great job. And I'm not here to talk about, oh, the timing stand was shitty, or the graphics, the cartoon graphics were horrible and creepy, and, blah, 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 blah. We get it. This first year, I'm calling it the first pancake, right? It's annoying. Yes, being at a commercial break while we go to green and then there's a giant pile up and then we break from commercial and you're watching it going, what the hell just happened, right? But I do think that there is an opportunity for Fox to be even better. It's going to be very interesting to see what the streaming options are going to be for next year. And it also talks about what the hell is the schedule going to be like next year, especially with the World Cup. And what is Fox going to do to nurture this entity that they have after the season ends? IndyCar has a long off season this year. It is crazy to me that it's August and I'm already sitting here going, holy shit, we only have 2-3 more races left. What am I supposed to do between September and March? That is a lot of time. And so, how do you keep somebody warm that might not be a true love diehard, someone like the listeners on this podcast, right, that are living and breathing IndyCar as much as they possibly can? They're just a passive watcher. If you hook them this season and then you got 6 months of nothing, what are the odds of those people coming back? They may watch St. Pete and go, this is exciting. Or they might watch the 500 because it's the 500. But are we going to capture and keep and sustain the people that we have recruited over to the IndyCar side to continue watching later? Who knows, right? So there's still a lot of what ifs around what's going to happen around the numbers. I think Portland and Milwaukee and Nashville are going to be very interesting to see what happens. Alex Palou might clinch this thing this weekend in Portland. It might happen. Honestly, might not even be the right word for this. I'm assuming that it's going to. Shoot, he might even win the damn thing. Who knows, right? But at the same time, he might even DNF, which, what are the odds of that happening? But hey, if he DNFs, then we go on to Milwaukee. If Palou clinches in Portland, what are the numbers actually going to be like in Milwaukee and Nashville? What are going to be the, why should I watch this if I'm not a live, breathe, drink, eat, consume IndyCar content person, right? Am I really going to watch to see if Pato gets second or who gets third place in the championship? Maybe someone as a Pato fan will, right? Be like, ooh, I would love to see him get second in the championship. But do I really care about who gets third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th? Maybe, maybe not. Am I really going to be sitting there going, ooh, okay, let's see. Nolan Siegel's on the bubble for leadership circle. So Nashville's really going to be a pivotal race on who gets those last 3 spots for the leadership circle. Maybe someone that's really invested in it will watch it. Maybe someone that's like, well, Palou won Portland. What are the odds of him winning in Milwaukee? And what are the odds of him winning in Nashville? Right? So those numbers are going to be ones that we're going to have to watch. And then we'll see what those are. If there's a major drop and a major cliff, we can't predict who's going to be a champion, right? But it does beg the question of, if there's going to be this champion is crowned with 2 races to go, then you even have longer to sustain these fans that can become diehard fans. What are you going to do with it? Right? So we'll definitely get to see what happens with the viewership numbers. And we'll see what Fox continues to do, which I think is a great segue of what Fox already did, right? So the news has already been out for a little bit of time that Fox has purchased approximately 1/3 of Penske Entertainment. So think about the fact that now Fox owns 1/3 stake in IndyCar and IMS, which came with a bunch of other things, right? They've extended their multi-year, media rights with Fox Sports, which that was already for a while. So that's already happening, right? And because it was, I think, slated already till 2027. So what? We added more time. Great. Awesome. But the cost of it, I think, at least the estimated cost for it was really crazy to me. That it was roughly around 135, 120-ish million dollars. Granted, 125 to 135 million dollars is a lot of cash. It's a lot of moolah, right? That's a lot of money, right? But if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, that's actually not a lot of money for an entire series. You think about Formula One, look at that cost. It's like two and a half, maybe three driver salaries. Three driver salaries for a third of the cost of what IndyCar would be, right? There's some drivers that probably could buy a fourth or even probably a third of a series, right? So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I am really worried about the streaming option. I want to think optimistically here and see what actually happens. But as someone who has access to Fox and FS1 and FS2, it's been very easy for me to watch. I can turn it on, I can record it on, my DVR, I can do all of that fun stuff. And I haven't had the opportunity to talk to many folks that actually stream it from either YouTube, TV options, or anyone that's internationally watching it. But from what I've heard, it's just not a great experience, right? And so this new Fox Sports, Fox Plus, Fox insert fun, kitschy streaming name here is really going to hopefully help viewership, like we just talked about. It also gives IndyCar a little bit more opportunity to have more marketing. I feel like marketing has been a buzzword for now, at least for 2 seasons. Ironically, I'm wearing my Pato Who hat, which was, which spurred the conversation around whether or not we should race in Mexico and market in Mexico, right? But with Fox, a lot of their conversation now is we want to have more festival, Long Beach-esque street races. And which is fine. I think that street races in metropolitan areas brings non-fans and fans alike. I do think that connecting the races, especially on the streets with IMSA, is a great way for us to create more hype around the IndyCar sport and also support amazing series like IMSA. Hell, now we can even have the NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader back if that's something we wanted to do. Or maybe plug into some of these other sport entities that Fox owns. I will put it out here now. Please, Fox, anyone who's listening that wants to make Monica happy, do a throwback livery race and do it at a fun track. How amazing would that be if we had the opportunity to have throwbacks and have an amazing kind of nostalgic feeling? Shit, do it at Long Beach. I don't care. But I think that it gives us the opportunity to have similar moments that bring so much joy when NASCAR does it or when the NFL wear their throwback jerseys. It's just a moment. And I think that, and I hope that the folks at Fox are starting to noodle and starting to think about what they can do to make this part of their deal fruitful. I hate to say this also, they're a publicly traded company. They have shareholders. They have a board. They have to provide ROI, our favorite word in corporate America, to their bottom line of why they're doing this. This is great because they see potential. But what's going to happen when that potential, if that potential doesn't happen? Or they're funding and pushing money into IndyCar, but they're not getting the return on their investment. What's going to happen? Right. So I think we as fans really have to stand behind IndyCar as a whole and really support this series. Because I think we're at a pivotal moment where we can either continue moving forward and driving more fans, driving more traffic, having more visibility, or this is it. This is where we're going to sit, right? So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a very interesting time to see what happens next year, especially. I think the fans, as we all know, we will hold Fox accountable. Um, but we have to also think about accessibility. Are people going to want to buy another streaming app for IndyCar specifically? I don't know, right? Um, if you think about, can we put it somewhere else and have a partnership? Could we have a partnership with YouTube? Could we have a partnership with Prime or XYZ, right? Roku, right? Where folks can either access the races easier, more cost effectively, etc., right? Especially if they don't have access to US television antennas to be able to watch on air television during prime time. So we'll see. Who knows if they're going to shake it up? We might see Wednesday night races, right? During football season, we might see an extended season. Maybe we'll get a March through September season where it's going to be a full, 19 race season. Who knows? The installations, right? We might get certain pop up races in, I think Denver's been talked about. How amazing, as a Chicagoan, right? How amazing would it be to have a Chicago street race? Granted, please, we need to talk about the track and how the layout is because the NASCAR one wasn't it. But hey, there's a possibility there. There's a possibility of doing more opportunity pop-up races for maybe a year or two on the Northeast, right? Doing one even in the West, right? So I think we have an opportunity here to see what we can do. I will hold my breath and I will see. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So there's not much to really report on after this, right? Silly season is, I'm now coining it the willpower season. He's the domino that needs to fall, right? If Penske decide to re-sign him, certain things are going to happen. If Penske decide to not re-sign him, certain things might happen on the other side and David Malukas will be promoted up. We do not know. And every week is fucking different, right? One week we're at the track and we're hearing rumors that Power is out. Penske is done. Next week, no, Penske's in. They're signing, they want to offer him a one year contract plus the potential of a extra year if based on performance. Malukas is ready. Malukas isn't ready. Who knows? Who really knows what's going on? And I guess we really don't know once that happens. Is VK staying at Coin? The number 66 that Meyer Shank is still available. Would he leave? Will he? Is Jacob Abel staying? None of these conversations can really happen unless other dominoes move. And let's say Power is out. He doesn't have another seat. He retires. Malukas moves up. We have an open Foyt seat. Let the piranhas pry on that seat, right? So not much to report there. Still have no schedule for 2026, which I think for IndyCar, the fact that we don't have a schedule for the following season and we only have 3 races left is pretty late for them. So I think we're finalizing dates, especially for, some of those long-standing dates. There's now rumors that are being circulated more and more that Iowa will not be on the calendar next year. Let me pause here for anyone who is shocked. No one? Yeah, same. But I do think that we are going to get a calendar update soon, silly season update soon. I have this weird feeling that once Pelot clinches it, if it's in Portland or Milwaukee, I don't think it's going to go down to the last race, in my opinion. Once Pelot clinches it and the season is basically done and dusted, unless you're fighting for leadership circle points, then we'll probably know what's happening with willpower. So, but yeah, that's the news, guys. We did want to end with a question. We've gotten a ton of amazing questions from a lot of our fans over the last 2 weeks, and we haven't forgotten about you. So we wanted to answer a question that I think is pretty timely, actually. So this question is from Simon from Germany. And the question is, should a team have as much power within a racing series as Penske currently seems to have? Do you think that's in the spirit of the sport? Well, I think between myself and even Milena and a lot of teams and a lot of drivers on the grid, a lot of them are not happy about the fact that Penske has a team and owns the series. Well, I guess owns majority stake of the series soon, right? With Fox owning 1/3. In my opinion, me personally, I don't like it. I think we have to be also grateful to Penske Entertainment and Roger Penske for being able to have the funding to have the conversation and the connections to bring IndyCar to the forefront and to have IndyCar be hopefully one day a more household name when you're talking about motorsport. But I think over the last couple of years, a lot of folks have been very vocal about the fact that there is a conflict of interest. We can talk about the big ones. Attenuator Gate from this year, right? Man, their three top people got fired because of that. And that opened up a can of worms about whether or not they were cheating in the 2024 Indy 500, the 2023 Indy 500 with the whole red flag situation, right? The technical situations around whether or not cars are up to snuff with their tech inspections. Push the pass gate, right? And when you think about it, at least right now in the current state of Penske Entertainment and Penske, okay, they fined Penske Racing Team got fined for push to pass gate. So did Roger just transfer money from one of his bank accounts to the other, right? And vice versa? Or did it's just having money in both pockets? And I do think that there are frustrations amongst many teams that this continues to happen. Imagine if Red Bull in Formula One, imagine if Red Bull owned Formula One and there was no FIA, there was no governing body. People would be like, people are now upset about Racing Bulls and Red Bull and how they're not, that's a conflict of interest. And we've seen that happen where you see Max going through the field to possibly win and he passes with a blue flag around a Racing Bull. And then, Charles Leclerc is behind him for possibly first or second. And all of a sudden that blue flag's a little bit longer with that Racing Bull driver because they know how to play the game. It's that same feeling. And unfortunately, it's not going to go away. And I think it's something that we can continue talking about. And I think it's something that we can continue being upset about, but it's not going to go away. And it really depends. I think that a lot of people are not talking about Attenuator Gate or anything that's happened this year. It's kind of been a footnote, really, around the domination around Palou because Penske's had a shitty year. If you think about it, in my opinion, that's a little bit of karma. And I feel bad for the drivers. I really do. I definitely see the pain in Joseph Newgarden's eyes. I definitely see the pain in Scotty Mack. And I think Will Power is just like, are you going to sign me or not? And Penske Perfect is no longer really a thing this year. And they can write this season off and focus on next year. And that's going to be scary. I have this really weird feeling that whoever those three drivers are going to be in 2026, they're going to be coming in with a chip on their shoulder to prove every one of us wrong. Every single one of us wrong, right? And I don't want to push any bad vibes or comments towards the drivers. I think this is just the way that the series is built, and there's nothing we can do about it unless you have $350 million just chilling in a bank account somewhere that you could just buy it from Roger and then you solve our problem, right? I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I do think that with Fox buying a third stake, it just gives us more opportunity to say, okay, we might be breaking some ice here with Roger and Penske Entertainment, right? We have Doug Bowles now in his position. We are going to get a third party, governing body, if that's for technical inspections, etc. So I think we're learning from our mistakes and we'll see what happens, right? Not everyone's happy with the FIA, right? Man, open Twitter. Between the FIA slander and opinions around FIA, you're not going to please everybody. And that's okay. So we'll see. I don't think that the spirit of the sport changes much. I think the frustrations among fans is annoying, but hey, bad press, even from a PR perspective, bad press is good press. If shit is hitting the fan and you're in the series, especially around Push the Pass Gate when that happened and Attenuator Gate, the media talked and other news outlets picked it up. And we got more eyeballs on it. Maybe even non-fans going, what the hell is going on with this series called IndyCar? I'm an F1 fan. Why is there so much drama? And we might have picked up a couple of fans going, yeah, I kind of want to watch this now. This is kind of cool, right? So thank you, Simon, for your question. I think it depends. It really depends on the week and it depends on what Penske Entertainment does. But we'll see what happens once Fox takes that 1/3 ownership and we'll see if anything changes. And hopefully Penske has a season with no scandals. I think that's all they're hoping for is just their PR people and their media people being like, please just a basic, bland, okay year. That's all we want. So I guess we'll see. Oh, all right. I think I've chatted your ears off a little bit too much this evening, but thank you so much for bearing with me while I go through some of the news pieces from the last couple of weeks. We will be back on the mic soon to talk a little bit about Toronto, Laguna Seca, and Portland. We're very much excited to be going to good old Milwaukee in a few weeks to get some cheese curds and watch some great oval racing up there. And if you haven't gone, highly recommend. There's still tickets available if you'd like to go. And thank you so much for listening. This was fun. I like this kind of solo moment. So maybe Milena will get a solo moment soon. And we can do a couple of these. If you did like this and you like the more shorter format and just talking about one specific piece like news, let us know. Leave a comment, leave a review, DM us if you would like to. And if you haven't done so, follow us. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, BlueSky, YouTube at Lap It Like It's Hot. And you can listen to us, on Spotify, Apple. I don't know, maybe you watched me on YouTube today. Hello. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. And man, we'll see you guys soon. All right. See ya. Bye.